Welcome to Feedback Fix, where we get real about the messy conversations that move us forward. We are a live podcast, which means no scripts, no do overs, just unfiltered, honest conversations happening as they unfold. I'm Colette Revere, and today I'm sitting down with Suzanne Puett, Organizational Change Management Lead at Nordic Global, my former boss and current boss, BOSS. Suzanne, I am so happy to be here with you today.
Me too, Colette. Me too. Talking about one of our favorite topics too.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So what are you working on right now?
So I was in consulting for like 5+ years, and I'm thrilled to actually be internal, in-house at Nordic Global doing change management because of the being able to see things from beginning to end and actually build those really deep relationships that enable change management to get done. So yeah, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled.
That's cool. So
Yeah.
what are you doing with or for whatever you can share, what are you doing with Nordic Global? It's not a company I'd heard of until I saw it on your profile.
Yeah, yeah. So we are a end-to-end IT technology company specifically designed and working with healthcare. So
Okay.
hospitals, regional, all those kinds of things. So it has kind of deep purpose, deep meaning, deep care behind all of the work, which is really nice. It's to build a healthier world. So and doing that through technology and people.
Beautiful. How cool that
Yeah,
you get
fun.
to actually work for a place that aligns with kind of what your heart's mission is anyway.
Yeah, yeah. I'm loving it. I've only been there for 3 months, but I'm
Yeah,
totally loving it. Yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah.
And I love that we have a special guest behind you, Piper.
Yes,
Yes, she's so sweet.
Smitty will also be joining and chiming in, I'm sure.
That's cute. I see a tail on the other side, so
Yeah.
I'm sure that's him. Okay, so you mentioned feedback is one of our favorite things.
Mhm.
It is. You have taught me so much about feedback, and it's something I want to get into later.
I'm
But I
scared.
would love, I know you're scared right now. I would love to know what is your first reaction to the word feedback?
Have you ever seen the movie The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly?
No, I haven't seen it, but I've heard, I know, don't get
That
me crap.
classic. It's a classic Clint Eastwood, but it has this theme song that it's this whistle. It's like a foreboding, just like something. And that's what I hear in my head every single time. And I've thought about this because it's really for a couple reasons. One is feedback really can be extremely good and helpful and positive, and it can really be miserable and off the mark and not helpful and detrimental, um, which kind of goes to the thing of it's a skill, right? I mean, it is just a skill that you have to learn and practice and be clumsy over, and giving and receiving for it's that two-sided coin.
Yeah.
100% two-sided coin.
I was thinking that too when you were talking about a skill. I feel like most often Dave Holden, who's on the call, chimed up and he said tumbleweed. So he relates to your
Yes, yes.
your analogy. When you were saying that, I think a lot of times we talk about feedback being a skill in terms of giving feedback, and we talk about that a lot, but I don't know how often we really talk about receiving feedback as a skill. And I totally agree with you. I think it's not something that's natural
Yeah.
for us to be just open to and okay with. It feels, I don't know. What would you describe the feeling of receiving feedback when you know you're going to receive some and you don't know what it's going to be?
Yeah, when you don't know what it's going to be, when someone says, "So are you open to some feedback?" or "I've got some feedback for you," the first thing is always is that you scrunch up and you get that little boulder in your belly,
Mhm.
because you don't know, and I've really worked hard to kind of change my attitude about that, because I think there's so much value in it when people do it well. And so I almost have this when somebody says, "Can I give you some feedback?" I'm like, "Can you do it well?" If you do it well, then we can talk. That's terrible.
If
Right,
only people could even self-evaluate on that,
right.
you know?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
what do you
Funny.
think that so I know what it is for me, and I'll answer this question too, but I'm just wondering for you, that boulder in the belly,
Mhm.
the constriction. What do you think is the biggest fear? What is that like? What is happening, do you think?
I think it's the fear. It's such a good question, Colette. And I want you to answer after me,
I
because
will.
I'm not sure if this is the. For me, it's probably like this fear of being seen, like really, like right. Oh crap! They've seen me for what I really am, and
Yeah.
it's, you know what I mean. I guess it's so. I think we all have so many experiences with feedback that we thought was irrelevant, or nasty, or came from a bad place, or clumsy. I think, um, yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of rambling, but
No.
I think that's. What do you think?
Yeah.
Let's.
No, I totally relate to that. I feel that too, that it's kind of this fear of there's something either wrong with me or not good enough.
Yeah, it's
And
the.
I'm doing everything I can to be good enough. And if you see something that's not right, if I'm not doing a good job doing good enough, then shit.
Yeah,
Now what am I gonna do? I'm already doing my very best.
yeah,
You know?
especially for high performers, or for anybody. I think. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because um, I think about kind of four different kinds of feedback. So the first one's like that super easy, positive strokes, um, good, not just good job, but you did a great job of that presentation because you were super prepared and the leaders really heard you, and blah, blah, blah. Like that, if we knew that was coming, our reaction would be very, very different, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
totally.
but then there's the kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly one, with the tumbleweeds, Dave, to your point. And that is that I didn't meet expectations. And that always feels bad, even though I know we can't always meet expectations or exceed expectations, or whatever. Um, and then I think that the feedback to me that's exceptionally hard to both give and to receive is what I would call relational feedback. And it's that part that says, um, our relationship is off. And
Yeah.
that is, workplace relationship is off. And in some way, wherever that is, right? So it's almost like, if I think about, there's that, I don't know if you saw that show, and there's a book called like Water for Chocolate. And
Oh,
Water
yeah.
for Chocolate is that phrase from Mexico that says emotions are boiling, right? They're
Mhm.
they're like getting intense. Um, and that's the really hard part, that to both give and to receive, is when there's something like at stake, like a relationship at stake, feels even like, to me, I mean, that's
Yeah.
like the absolute biggest and hardest to give and to receive. Um, Yeah, I think it's funny because
Mhm.
Dave's on the phone. One of my all-time favorite bosses ever, who we all know, I won't name, is She was I think probably the first person I ever gave relational feedback to at work. And absolute hands down the best boss I ever had. And was the queen of idea generation, right? She had like so many ideas and just things, just, oh, we should do this, we should do this, we should do this. And you get all excited about all of them. And then the mind would change or the circumstance would change. And so for me and the team, it kind of spun us up a lot and it felt frantic. And I finally was like, this is not okay. Like I can't operate in this environment. And that was a relationship feedback piece that had I felt had to be given and was scary as hell to give. Right? Like, how do you do that? Number one, it's up, right? I mean, so often when we talk about feedback, we're thinking it's to my direct reports or whatever, but feedback is up and down and sideways and peripheral, and I mean, it's like all these places. And so I was so stressed over how do I have this relational feedback thing. And luckily for me, I cared deeply about this person. And so my intention, right, when we talk about intention, I'm totally rambling, but sometimes when we talk about intention with feedback, it's growth. And for me, there is this element of sometimes it's not about the other person. Sometimes, especially with relational feedback, it's not about even their growth. It's about fixing this environment because I am miserable or it is impacting how I work. And so that's a really different kind of mindset to be in and giving feedback, and feels even more high pressure. And we so often, I think, don't give that kind of feedback.
Yeah.
If we did, how better our work environment would be, and our teams would be stronger and more cohesive because we were doing that kind of real talk and getting messy as you right,
Yeah.
getting real and getting messy with feedback. And I think I said something like, I'm not going to do this well. So give me grace, but this is really important. And I still remember these words to this day, and I have other feedback examples for later. But this whole thing of I said I need you, and the team needs you to be stickier. I need you to be sticky. You remember this? It was
I
like
totally remember this. Yes.
I need you to be sticky because we are just like, we're just flailing around and getting really spun up and putting in a lot of energy. And kudos to her because she could receive feedback, and she immediately went into problem solving mode of, okay, what do we do? How do you help me? How do I help you? How do I help the team? How do we, I get it. I do that. I mean, she totally owned it like immediately. And it was amazing. And we had a great discussion, and we came up with, is this a sticky idea? Like that, like we had phrases of, kind of helping her, and her going, this isn't really a sticky idea. You know what I mean? So we had like words that really helped, and our relationship which was already incredibly strong, got even stronger. And that's why I think that idea of relational feedback is just so
Huge.
important and
Well, and I think
talked about.
also you know the difference. You have the difference. I think a lot of people don't have the categories of, oh, this is feedback about our relationship and this is feedback about your work. It's like, I do think that there's this transactional component to relationships and the relational component to relationships. But at work, sometimes we like to pretend that there's just a transactional component. And so feedback is feedback, and it's about what you're doing in our transaction, but there's always this underlying relationship, whether it's good or bad. And the fact that you have the insight that is the issue, it isn't the unstickiness, it then becomes the trust in you to be a good leader for me so that I can lead my team for you. And, it becomes deeper than that. So I think the fact, well, you were both my favorite bosses. I was unbelievably lucky to work for both of you. And yeah, I can see how you two could have that conversation and come out. Um, Even though it was difficult, I know it wasn't easy because I remember working with you. You were practically unflappable, Suzanne. This is part of, like, I learned so many things from you. I swear I tried to be you for a short time and realized I couldn't do it. It doesn't work. Only Suzanne can be Suzanne, but
Thank God there's only one of me.
no, true. This laugh, right? You have
Yeah.
this incredible disarming power. And you're wicked smart and you do seem unflappable. And the times that I saw you get really soft
Mhm.
and mushy and emotional were the times where things started to impact your relationship with people. Like that was an area for you where it was just intolerable. Something had to be done when it got to that point.
Yeah. Yeah. I thank you, first of
Mhm.
all, Colette. Um, that team was so freaking amazing, number one.
Truly.
And I'd never thought about that. But it does. I think so many times when things get bad enough, right, where you have to go like it's why I go like I literally keep a sheet of paper that has like, here's the things to remember when you're giving feedback, and here's the things to do
Mhm.
when you're because I have these conversations a lot in my as a change practitioner. Number one, you have constantly giving people feedback and coaching and doing all kinds of and getting it. um, and the very first thing that I try to remember is to know my intention and
Yeah.
to categorize it, just like you said. Is it straight up developmental? Is there a gap? Am I identifying a gap? Am I do I need to give feed forward? And go let's forget that. What are you going to do differently moving forward? Or is it relationship? Like really go what do I want out of this conversation? Is it about the other person? Is it about me? Is it about us? Is it like I don't know, there's so much value in doing that because it puts you in the right headspace to have the conversation, first of all, especially if it's up or sideways,
Yeah.
but equally down, to with your team. But it really changes to go, what do I actually want out of this conversation? Just becomes so important. Uh,
Yeah.
to me, it sets the stage because then I know how to frame it, right? I can frame it up right, um, and use the right word, the words that I know people can hear.
Hmm.
Um, and I once had somebody say, "We need to remove the F word entirely."
Feel? What's the F word?
Feedback.
Oh.
We need to remove the F word completely from our vocabulary because we have so much baggage with it.
Mm,
And
yeah.
that we can still have those kinds of conversations without going, I need to give you some feedback, right?
Yeah.
Because we can do that. My dogs are going to bark. Sorry. They're like, yes. um, yeah. So anyway, I just think that there's some. I mean, it's an interesting concept, but when I think about the best feedback that I've ever gotten, it hasn't been when someone says, "I have feedback for you."
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
that's not how it starts.
So I want to ask you something. And I don't know if you're going to even be able to answer because I feel like, well, I don't want to set you up for failure here, but I feel like it may come so naturally to you that it's not really a process. But you talked about going into a conversation knowing what you wanted from it.
Mhm.
How do you figure out what you want? I mean, if you could share a process around that, because I think that's can be complicated sometimes. How do you figure out what you want from a conversation?
That's a really good question. I have those buckets where is my intention behind having this conversation to help someone, help
Mm,
them get over a hurdle? Is it to for a better successful outcome? Is it uh, y- is it because I'm impacted in a
yeah.
way I have to do something about
Yeah.
this? Like, and that's really
Right.
my, it's those categories that help me go, what's my intention? Is it for the other person or is it for me? Both are very, very valid.
Yeah.
And I think so often we I know it's taken me forever to get to kind of this place in my career, my experience, and I've had so many great models of
Mm.
feedback, of people who give feedback really, really, really well. Um, same boss. I had vividly remember the executive leaders going, "Oh my God, she could tell you to basically go f off, and you would just want to hug her because."
It's true.
All right, she just ripped you a new one, and you're like, okay, okay, what are we gonna do next? And it's that skill of having good intentions. Like I think
Yeah.
we're just so dialed into that intention thing. I don't know. I don't know. What's your process for that?
Yeah. Gosh. I mean, it is a hard question, isn't it? What's interesting is like, so I'm not evading this question, I promise, but I feel like when I heard you talking a lot about, can somebody give me feedback well? And I do want to like dig into that too.
Yeah.
But for me, maybe it's like my codependency, but I'm always like focused more on the other person, I think. I do have this fear of being seen, whatever that means. Not even seen, but I think my fear is that I'm missing something.
Mm.
Like that there's a big ol', you know, nasty boil on my nose and everybody can see it, but I'm
Yeah.
missing it. I'm not seeing it. And so that fear, and I think at least for me, and this is no offense to my family, my mom, I think this is for a lot of people, it goes back to, I remember just growing up and being a kid and just being free and doing what you do,
Mhm.
and then kind of getting in trouble for it or getting feedback that that's not okay or that's not appropriate, whatever it is. But just kind of that clipping of freedom and kind of the almost like shaping you into something more acceptable
Yeah.
or appropriate or whatever that is. And, I feel that when I get feedback, even now, I do find it helpful. I find it hard to receive, but I, at the end of the day, usually find that I'm happy that I received it. So that's a long way around that, but that's like my experience.
Yeah.
So your experience sounds more focused on the person who's giving you the feedback and kind of a skill level there, or some sort of, is it the intent? Does that just go back to intent, or is there more than that?
Ah, that's a great, I think it goes back to intent. And I was kind of being facetious about, can you give it well? Because I think if somebody came to me, I know if someone came to me and said, this is hard and I may not do this well.
Yeah.
Um, because it's hard to give feedback, right?
Yeah.
Um, I appreciate that kind of vulnerability going into an exceptionally vulnerable conversation, right? So you don't have to be necessarily skilled, but your intent has to be there. And for me to not just always hear it, but feedback is feedback, and we all have to make that decision of, is it good? Is it valid? Is it, um, I think the one question I try to ask myself, even when I go, okay, whatever, like, is what would it mean to me if this was true?
Okay.
If that makes sense, like getting that feedback and going, I don't know if I agree with that, but going, what would it mean if it was true? Makes me kind of go, okay, makes it a little more receiving. And, maybe there's a hidden gift in this that I'm sounding like all feedback's just miserable. And I don't mean to come across that way at all, but feedback's hard getting it. Um, so there's like those, is it valid? Is it, what would it mean what would it mean if it was true? Is there a gift in this for me? Um, do I want to take action on this? And do I need help? Is kind of that last thing, right? Because maybe
Yeah.
it's something, to your point, I didn't know I had this giant boil on my face. And so I need visibility, right? I need someone else to be that mirror for me. And how can I have that help that I need to actually internalize this feedback
Yeah.
and make it into something that changes and helps me grow?
Yeah.
I don't know if
Suzanne,
that answered your question or not, but
you are so wise. And
thank you.
you are so wise. And I do love that question it's a beautiful question. What if this is true?
Mhm.
At the very least, it's likely true for the person who's saying it, right? So, like, the truth is one person's truth might not be another person's, but it's in some reality, this
Yeah.
is probably true in somebody's reality. And so I love that question because it doesn't mean that you have to own it. It just means that you have to hear it in order to properly evaluate it,
Yeah.
like really receive it.
Yes.
That makes it palatable.
Yeah, I have to consider it at
Mhm.
least as potentially true, because it's true for one person. It could be true for a lot of people, or maybe it's just flat out the truth.
Mm,
And it's way bigger and I didn't see it coming at all.
yeah,
Yeah, but it switches my mindset and makes it easier to think, instead of, sometimes you hear something, you're like, you are so wrong. That is just not helpful, and you just totally dismiss it. I think that's the other thing too with feedback is you said something in your last podcast that I loved, of like, I'm holding sacred space and I'm not ready to hear anything negative
Mhm.
today or whatever.
Yeah,
Um, and and we don't always have the choice to do that. Sometimes, right? We may not
right.
have the choice to do that. It's a great boundary to have.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's not possible. We can certainly ask for it. But I think that thing um, of not responding initially and going, and the simple kind of thank you. I really want to think through this before I respond, and can I do that? Like, it's an opportunity for us to model what good receiving looks like.
Yeah. And I also heard like a here when you talk about how to start it out, which I totally agree is I feel the same way. When somebody comes and they have some humility,
Mhm.
not as if I know everything and I'm about to impart some wisdom to you, which we have both been on the receiving end of that from well-meaning people, but also people with kind of maybe a lack of self-awareness. And
Yep.
I do feel like, yeah, it's more difficult to receive from somebody who has an approach like that. There's a certain humility involved in saying, I might not do this really well. Like, just admission of imperfection, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
changes the whole experience, I think.
true. Yeah.
I mean, I wish more people would do that, even when it's like straightforward, like I expected this and here's what I got. I think that's hard feedback to say too. I mean that which seems pretty straightforward, and to go, this is hard. This is hard
Yeah.
for me. It's hard. It's hard to say. I mean, I think having a few kind of one-liners that you can have in those situations when it is really tough, right, is super helpful also. Um,
Yeah.
I'm a I'm a I'm a fan of like, I mean, of little lists. And I mean, if you saw my office, I have
I
like,
know.
here's
Your phone.
questions and here's, I mean, like, I've got all this stuff. Um, and doing that specifically with feedback, I think is something, it's almost like how do we memorialize our process? And
Mhm.
how do we, so that we're not um, fumbling every time?
Yeah. Talking with you about it, there's just this sense, Suzanne, that it's sacred.
Hmm.
It is sacred. It's between two people. The context of a relationship is always there. It's never not about that.
Yes.
You know? Eh, it's yeah,
I
the
think there's something that gets me too when I hear people go, "Oh, it's all about the growth of the other person." And when I put, I kind of like, yes, and that has a touch of that superiority that you were talking about, that I know what's best for you thing.
yeah,
And it's why I love feed forward in particular, when I think about the different types of feedback and this, and thinking about coming on to your podcast, I was like, God, what do I have to say about feedback? I don't know what I have to say about feedback. And so I've done some soul searching around it,
mhm,
and a couple things have come up for me. One is that those kind, that intention thing that I said, but also um, the power of questions that are used to um, bring out the person's own feedback on themselves, right? I mean, it's like, we know, I think you said this in your last part, like, I know when I screw up,
mhm.
like, I don't need, in fact, it actually doesn't help me that much when somebody says, oh, you could have done that better. Like, I know. It just makes it more obvious and more eek, right?
Painful, yes.
But when someone says, in a feed forward kind of fashion, how do you think that went? What do you think you did really great? What was the thing that you're really proud of? What's the thing that you would do differently next time?
Mhm.
I'm not asking about your mistake, really, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, my energy was low or my whatever, I mean, it could be
Mhm.
a whole plethora of things. But that notion of to me, the power of a good question
Yeah.
that evokes that internal wisdom that we all have. We
Mhm.
all have that internal wisdom. How can I help that person get there? What's the right question where they arrive at it, if they haven't already? And
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
that's more coachy, I guess, than quote feedback, but
Yeah. I like that. I've been on the receiving end of that done well and also not done well. Yeah, I've been on the receiving end of that before where somebody is like, I know they have something to tell me and
mhm,
they're trying to get me to say
mhm,
it first.
mhm.
And I'm like, oh God, please don't ask me another question. Just tell me what you want
Tell
to
me.
say. Give me your
Uh,
perspective because that becomes painful to go through this practice of like, oh man, you have something you want to say, but you want me to say it first, but I don't know what it is. So can we just cut to the chase?
yeah,
And when it's done well, it doesn't feel like that. It does feel like a supportive person who's asking you thoughtful questions for you to reflect, not that they have an agenda outside of that, you know?
yes, yes. I think of like my brother's the king of great questions. And he's like my go-to person where I call and I go, my boss, or my, whatever. I've got this peer and there, whatever. And usually one of his first question is, do you think you have a part in that or no?
Man, that's a good question.
And that's all he says, and then I go, "Oh, I've got a part in," or like, or "No, hell no, I don't have a part in it." You know what I mean? And then he can give me that primes the pump for me to be receiving of his thoughts also, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a weird, I don't know. I don't know. I just think the questions that challenge you to to think a smidge more.
Yeah, so true. And to look at responsibility, your own part in whatever the dynamic is that's
Yeah,
happening.
it's hard and it
Yeah.
sucks. Um, you know, that's the power of time, I think, too, of and reflecting on the feedback. Like you said, I think I love that you pushed a smidge back on that and when there's that can be done poorly too because I can see that and that can feel like just oh my god, just freaking tell me. Are you kidding me? Like, you know, in my directness, I'd probably go, it seems like you've got something you want to say.
Totally. Yeah.
Right.
That's probably why if you haven't been on the receiving end of that, that's probably why, Suzanne, 'cause you're like, "What are we doing?"
Just tell me. That's terrible.
So, I wanna know, so you've already told me about a feedback experience, but something tells me that is not the most powerful feedback experience for you, although I know it was a power I truly remember, where we were in the office that day, I remember that day, and it was, but so I want to hear your story about the most powerful feedback. And as much as you can, just try to take us there as if it is happening in the present, right? So like where are you? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? What's going on around you?
Yeah. Um, I honestly, I have so many examples of feedback that was hard to hear and um, really meaningful all in the same time, and altered my moving forward. Um, One that comes up because I'm still working on this is um, as you know, Colette, I really like to put my thoughts down on paper first. And usually that means that they're pretty fleshed out by the time I show them to someone else. And I also like to think of myself as very collaborative.
Mhm.
And sometimes that doesn't feel collaborative when I go like, "Hey, we're going to work on this project, and let me show you this 20-slide PowerPoint of the whole thing all figured out. Now you poke holes in it." You know what I mean? Um, and I was totally unaware that this was the way I do things. I like totally oblivious to it. And I had an employee who said, um, who like very bravely, very bravely said, I thought we were going to do that together. And this feels like you already have it done.
Mm.
And you kind of do that a lot. And I was like devastated. It's not who I want to be seen, right, at all in that form. And totally dead on, absolutely true.
When did you so I just want to stop you for a second. In that moment when you heard it, did you feel like did you have this flash of, "Oh my gosh, this is true?" Oh, okay, okay.
No.
Thank you for your honesty.
Yeah, no, 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 no. It took me a minute, maybe 24 hours to get there.
Yeah.
No, for sure, because I was like, no, 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 I'm collaborative. This is why I brought it to you to go, let's collaborate. I was not able to see that people um, that wasn't collaboration. That was something less than collaboration,
Mhm.
and I don't even remember how I arrived at like, oh my god, I so do that.
Mhm.
Um, probably lots of reflection and maybe some glasses of wine or something.
Yeah.
I don't know how I got there.
My guess would be there might have been a glass of wine in there somewhere.
Probably so.
So then what was your first trip? So you're hearing it. Do you have one of these out of body experiences where you're like, be cool, be cool, be cool, try to listen, but still be cool? Like, are you just trying to keep it together, or what was going on for you?
I think it was kind of maybe mid-career for me. And so my first thought was like, oh my gosh, uh, this is so wrong. This is not, this is this person who just wants credit for stuff that they're, I mean, like, right,
Yeah.
like, okay, you want credit for the work, or,
Yeah.
I went dark.
Yeah.
Like I went dark.
Mhm.
And I remember being kind of that moment where they did it beautifully. I mean, it was clunky, but appropriately clunky,
Yeah.
right? When you're giving your boss feedback. And um, that notion of, let me think on this took me a minute to get there because I had to like totally chastise them in my brain first
Mhm.
about.
Hey, sometimes that's the process, right? You have
It is a
to get
process.
that out to
Yeah.
move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish that I could always not have that part of my process, but sometimes it's part of my process.
Mhm.
Um, and then it was, that thing of what would it mean to me if this was true? And it was that question, what would it mean to me if this was true? And the answer that came back in my head was, I would be devastated if this was true.
Mhm.
And no one wants to be devastated, right? And so it was kind of that thing of let me think on this, because I don't want to have a knee jerk reaction, because if you could hear what's in here, it would be bad. uh, anyway, whenever I came to the conclusion, it was pretty, I mean, relatively fast. I don't remember how long it was, but of like, no, it not only is it true and I am devastated, this is something I can change.
Yeah.
Um, and uh, and that coming to that place felt really good.
Mm.
And I went back to this person and said, you know what, I don't even remember how I responded to you when you gave me that. It was really hard to hear, and you were dead. You don't need validation of your correctness on this, but you
Yeah.
were dead on.
That is
um,
that's such a gift though, Suzanne. And I think I've seen you do that for me, and I've seen you do that for other people too, where you will verbalize, yeah, you'll validate other perspectives and say, I missed this, or I didn't get this right, or I was wrong. And that is so powerful because it doesn't happen often in a professional environment. I think people
so
are
sad.
afraid to do that. They're afraid that I mean, just like us with the big boils on our nose,
Yeah.
they're afraid that they're actually somewhat incompetent, maybe, or not as competent as they want to be. So then admitting, oh, I was wrong about this, or, you saw something that I didn't, feels intolerable,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah. I think it's so critical to building trust, and to the last thing I wanted to do was to make this person feel like they couldn't give me feedback
Yeah.
again, right?
Right.
And and I think it's all of our responsibility to go, no, again, I also feel bad going, oh, you were right. Like I don't need, like I
Yeah.
think people go, oh, I asked some other people and apparently you're right. I'm
Well,
like,
I don't know. I could see how that could come across as like, yeah, well, I didn't need your validation anyway. But I think also for somebody who is, surely this was an uncomfortable experience for that person. Surely they had some concerns about what this would do to your relationship. And for you to come back and validate them, I think is kind, whether they need it or not. That's not your decision, that's theirs. But to offer that for them, I
there's
think
that
is,
wise Colette.
well,
There's that wise Colette right there. Yeah, no. And I think for me, it's also going, I know you don't need my validation,
Yeah.
but I was wrong and you were right,
Yeah.
holds power, right? It's not about you being right, it's about me being wrong in that
Mhm.
instance to me, right? Like thank you because I did not see that.
Yeah.
It is the last thing that I want to be is seen as not collaborative.
Right.
Um, and and I commit to working on it. And here's what I'm going to do, and here's where I need your help.
Mhm.
Like when I do this, because I'll probably do it again, because it's how I've operated for however long, right? And I think that's the other part of the feedback circle is not just thanks for the feedback, but here's what I'm going to do about it, and here's where I need you to help me because I really do value that you brought this to my attention,
Yeah.
right? And so I also think your help, you're critical to continuing to give me feedback on that and how I'm
Yeah.
doing, and it's like the word, is this sticky? Is this not sticky? Is
Mhm.
this that like it's that ability to be a part of and continuing to be a part of what I just offered because
Yeah.
it's hard. And by you going, not only I get it, I need to do something different. I also need your help to do this is like the biggest validation ever.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I like as you were talking, I was almost thinking too that the validation is less you were right and more repeating that you
I heard
actually
it.
heard what they said. Yeah.
Yeah.
That I really heard you and I took it in and I get you. Understand where you could see that and feel that way. So
Yeah.
what did this do to your relationship with this person? Do you recall like
Oh, umpteen million times. I mean, not and I don't think I had a bad relationship to begin with. We'd have to ask her. Um,
do I know her?
maybe. But
Oh. Let's get her on the podcast.
that's right. Yeah. Oh my God, this is your life. Can you imagine?
No.
No, it would be like no one would come on
No,
anymore.
it's
Um,
true.
no, I think it strengthened our relationship and um, and made that notion of feedback of welcoming for both of us, right?
Yeah.
Um, because I really thought, wow, that was brave to come to me because I know how hard it is to go up.
Yeah.
And so, that became one of my go-to people of, what do you think about this? I
Yeah.
show up well? Like, seriously, did I show up well for that? Which is that other piece of feedback is normalizing it so that it's less of a deal every time,
Yeah.
it's not twice a year at performance and mid-years or whatever.
Right.
Um, it's how did I
So
show up? It's how did this do? Like, what can I do more of, less of, better? Whatever those are,
yeah.
in whatever ways that you can ask that make it feel better and normal, um, is all the better.
Yeah. I I was talking to somebody about this the other day about the infrequency of performance conversations in general and how stuffy it makes everything. And I think I came up with this analogy of it's like communicating with your partner only in therapy. So,
Yes.
like, you live with this person every day. You pass each other in the hallways. You're doing things together, but you wait until a therapy session to air all your grievances and feedback for each
Right.
other. And
Yeah.
so that's not a healthy
Mhm.
relationship. It certainly is not a high performing relationship. It's not a setup for something that actually works
Certainly not
well.
sustainable. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Or
mean,
only if you have a lot of money, I guess.
right? If you go to therapy every day, maybe. But
Right.
I mean, it's enough to limp it along,
Mhm.
maybe, but definitely not enough to make it work, you
Mhm.
know? And somehow at work, we think, even though we spend all this time working toward the same things and working together, that we can have a once a quarter conversation, a once a month conversation, a once a year conversation, and that's going to just cover it. one that's highly structured and moderated and all that. It's like, no, but I think the struggle is that it's hard.
Yeah.
And we haven't taught people how to do it. And it's so scary for a leader, especially, I think, to raise their hand and say, I don't know how to do this. I know
Right.
you made me a leader, and you know, I think you're going to regret your decision if I say I don't know how to actually do this and I need some help with it.
Yeah.
And so,
Totally agree. Such
yeah,
a skill. And that notion of, oh, you're a manager or you manage people, therefore you know how to do this
my
is like the
gosh.
biggest fallacy in the world. Yeah.
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 So, like, where did you learn how to do it? Because I do think that you do it well, Suzanne.
Thank you, Colette. I think you do it well too. I think
Thanks.
like you're also the master queen of, which is why you're found your bliss and Open 360.
Yeah.
Um, uh, I had really great models along the way, and equally really bad models that I also went, okay, I don't want to do that,
Mhm.
and I want to do more of that, and I want to do it in my own way. So I don't want to just emulate 100% someone else. And so I think some of it is playing around with what feels, because you want to be authentic. You don't want to just copy and paste and whatever.
Yeah.
Or I don't know. And I've had a lot of training because I was in L&D. I was in
Yeah.
OD forever, and so I've seen so many good models, and have probably piecemealed however I do it through that. But I also don't think I always do it well.
Yeah.
And I also get completely freaked out. Um, I do. I get completely freaked out sometimes. And I will have like my phone, I will wake up and go, okay, let me say, and I like have notes on how to, what I want to say to somebody.
You're still doing that.
Uh, I know I've been doing it forever. It's part of my madness and my
Yeah.
methodology that says I got to write it out. It may not be how I say it, but I really got to need to check my intention, check for trigger words, check to make, those kinds of things. And not that I rehearse it and say it because I want it to be real and all of that. But if it's really hard, especially if it's relational, uh, I will ponder. I
Yeah.
will ponder for a while before it comes out. It
Yeah.
doesn't come out like on the spot.
Yeah. Which is probably why you do it so well, because you are thoughtful about it and you're really intentional about it.
I try, and I sometimes go, oh my gosh, I spend so much time making it in a way that it can be heard.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, if it's really hard for me, I know that I will spend. So I'll spend some time on it before I ever bring it up. And part of that is getting my courage up,
Mhm.
and feeling that I have the confidence and that I have my head straight about it, and that I'm
Yeah.
not going to be emotional about it myself.
Mhm.
Giving it, like, I have my own emotions in check, even if it's, I thought you were going to do this and this is what you did, and maybe I have some anger, or maybe made me look bad, or it made our team look bad, or like all of those things, so that sometimes when people go on
Yeah.
feedback and you're like, it's because the blah and it's our emotion. We were too emotional about it,
Yeah.
and it's just an emotional thing. And so, can you do that ahead of time and get your emotion out before you actually have the conversation, and then realize the other person needs time to have that emotion?
Yeah. Because you've
Yeah,
thought it through. You
right.
handed out, you've spent time with it. This is maybe
Yeah,
the first that they're gonna be hearing
yeah.
this and thinking about it. That's a really great point.
What's your biggest? Do we have time? Oh, we have.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to hear your biggest feedback moment.
Well, okay. So I have something in my brain in the meantime, though. I
Okay.
was thinking this as you were talking, is that, and 6 minutes is so not enough time for my feedback moment, let me tell you. But maybe we can have a podcast about, maybe you could do that podcast and we'll talk about it.
That's
But
great.
and so I was thinking, of course it's still hard. Of course it's still hard. And this is part of what we need to teach people so that they're not ashamed to say, I don't know, or I'm scared, or I need help, is because it's always going to be hard because you are only 50% of the conversation.
Yeah.
If it's with another person, you don't ever know what they're going to do, what they're going to say, what they're going to think. You're actually not even responsible for that. You're responsible for staying open to their feedback and requests and being respectful. But when you go into anything, if there's a 50% chance of like an unknown, stuff's going to happen. And so I think a good portion of what helps people feel better about that is a plan for recovery. The ability when things go off the rails to know, okay, it's okay. Guess what? We can have 3 conversations. We don't just have to have one. So if the first one doesn't work, let's stop it. Let's take a time out, try to come back to it tomorrow, and then address what's happening between us and what just happened yesterday instead of the issue. And let's get back on track. And then we can have another conversation. It's like a game of chess in a way. And what you're talking about with that over preparation, I totally get, because I have that tendency myself. Like, I want to plan it all out myself, and this is how it's going to unfold. And it never works that way, because I move my chess piece and you move your chess piece, and then I move my chess piece, and there are just constantly moving parts. And so normalizing how scary and hard it is, like even when you're great at it, like you are, I think is so important.
I love that, Colette. And I also think I mean, one day maybe we can do it so well that we don't have to prep, and we can do stuff like, hey, like,
Yeah.
what the hell?
Yeah.
It'd be okay. Right.
Right.
Um, because we're giving each other grace and we're giving each other empathy, and we came from the right spot, which goes back to having the right intention. I think
Yeah.
intention is just everything, in so much of my life. But I do think knowing that going into a conversation makes me a better at it.
Yeah.
It just makes me better at having the conversation better about the unknown. Even like my intention is I just want our relationship to be better.
Mhm.
And that's as far as I get with my intention. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't
Yeah.
even require like oodles of days of ruminating over, whatever. Um, but being clear on my intention and communicating and being able to articulate that.
Yeah. I
Uh,
love that. I think that's what's happening when you're writing all of those things on your phone, and when you're really taking responsibility for your side of the street,
mhm.
basically, you know? And I think that you might take more responsibility for the other side of the street too, but I think that's normal as a leader. I think you do have more of an impact. So you do have to pay attention to that. But I think also what makes conversations healthy is that each person is responsible for themselves. So, and this is, you and I have this where, if I have a problem, I'm going to be like, hold up, Suzanne, I don't agree with that. I don't like what you just said,
Yep,
and
yep,
vice versa. So, guess what? We're totally freed up, because
yes,
I can say what I need to say, and I love you, and where I'm coming from, and I might misstep. And I can be assured that if I do with you, you're gonna check me.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
vice versa. Yeah.
Yeah, it's intention and trust.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's so much of that. And if you go in without those two pieces, how do you build it? And feedback, those kinds of conversations build trust, right?
Right.
Eventually. So it doesn't happen overnight either,
Yeah.
right? Um, I've cried a lot of during feedback things, whether it was anger tears or happy tears or mortified tears, at that big old mirror staring back at me.
Yeah.
And and having the space to go, that's okay too, or
Yeah.
I'm too emotional to continue this conversation.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be that.
Suzanne, I love you.
I love
And
you too.
talking to you, it's like some of the things you say, I go, oh, that's where I got that from. Because I think the same thing, but I'm like, I bet I got that from Suzanne.
No,
Because
it was vice versa, probably.
I don't know. Truly, truly, I love you. And you are a powerful, beautiful, wise, thoughtful woman. And I'm so grateful for you, for your friendship, and also for you to come on here and share and just be vulnerable and share your story and your wisdom with us too.
Thank you, Colette.
Yeah.
It's my pleasure, and I'm thrilled. And take everything I said with a grain of salt, because who knows?
Girl, always.
Who knows?
And
Who
thank
knows?
you, Dave, for showing up and being such a participant on our chat for our live stream. We love you guys.